My name is Arthur Torrington, Director of Windrush Foundation. Welcome again to Caribbean Gateway. And today we have a special guest who was on last week. That's Donald, Professor Donald. Well, just give us a bit more of what you were saying last week in terms of the journey from having qualified, you know, to what you're doing now.
Oh, okay. Well, Arthur, thank you again for inviting me. So, when I spoke last, I mentioned that I'd got my PhD. So, and a PhD stands for a Doctorate of Philosophy, which basically means that you're able to study a particular area or a particular field at that level. And so, once I'd completed my PhD, I ended up working in various research institute. So I worked at the Cancer Research UK, that was in Lincoln's Inn Fields. I spent 3.5 years, and what's referred to as a postdoctoral sort of research fellow. And there I did some research, again, around the area of the immune system. And then I spent another 3 years at Imperial College. Again,
You mean doing more research?
Yeah, again, doing more research.
So is there so much to know? I mean,
Yeah, there is a lot. There is a lot to know.
All right,
there's still a lot we don't know, and
Okay.
I can come into that. And then subsequently, to now getting to a permanent position, the key thing is to try and become a lecturer, to get a tenured post. And so the step I took to get that was I applied to get what was called a Career Development Award.
From where?
From the Medical Research Council, UK.
Okay.
And the idea of getting one of these awards is that this would fund your research for 4 years. In that way, you can then get yourself established and then apply for a permanent position at a research university. So I was successful after the second attempt in getting one of these awards. But that was quite then a lot of pressure.
Indeed.
That meant I had to deliver. So I managed to get myself a researcher and also a PhD student. So particularly...
So, three of you?
Yeah, there was myself, and I got some technical support, and I got a PhD student. And so with that, I was able then to do some research in immunology. I was able to publish some papers, collaborate with colleagues, both national and international. And once I'd finished that, I was able then to secure a lecturer position at the Royal Veterinary College, which is part of the University of London. And so I joined them in 2002 as a lecturer. And then really the idea was then to cement my research, but also to contribute to the teaching of students, which in fact I was also doing at Imperial. So part of what I was doing when I had my grant was I was also both teaching students, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate level. And then I cemented that further when I joined the Royal Veterinary College.
So when did that finish and that research finish? 2000?
So that research finished 2002, but then the position that I managed to obtain at the Royal Veterinary College was 50-50. 50% of my time teaching, 50% of my time still doing research.
Now 16 years on now, 2002. Yeah. So what's been happening in that particular space of time?
So since 2002 until now, so my position is now, I'm now an associate professor of immunology.
Where is this?
At the Royal Veterinary College. So I've been there now since 2002. So,
okay, so that's a good time.
Yeah, they like me.
So is it a mix of teaching and researching
Yeah,
still?
so again, it's now a mixture of teaching and research, and I enjoy teaching. So it's really great to teach young people and to infuse them with science in the same way that I was taught. So what's great now is that I teach both at the undergraduate level, and now I have my own PhD students.
Indeed.
So I now supervise PhD students the same way many years ago when I was a PhD student. So what's really encouraging is that the students that I'm now, teaching and hopefully inspiring them will now be the future scientists, subsequently. So that's what what I've been sort of doing.
That sounds very good. But in that time, I mean, how do you find time then to do work in the community? Because I know that you're involved in that in some way.
Yeah, so the work in the community is really vital for me in terms of giving back. I think it's really important in giving back, and it really is partly going back from when I was a child, because I look at my parents in that generation, and there was always a sense of community. So what was interesting, and particularly with my father, as I mentioned, was a bus conductor. But because he was good with numbers, my parents and many of that generation were involved in the partner scheme. And my dad, given that he was good with numbers, became the banker. So you'd find that there were many people coming around our house. And I would have to open the door to what was then the front room, the very nice, smart front room, and bring in teas and hearing conversations about what was going on in the community. And my dad was someone who'd then give advice and stuff like that. So there was always that sense of giving back. And more importantly, I see the fact that I've been able to navigate my way from school to college to university, and my position is that I've managed to find one or two ways of how success can be achieved. So I'm really humbled and grateful to be where I am, and so I really feel it's important to sort of give back. And I've been giving back in many ways. So I'm a chair of governors of a school in northwest London. I originally was a governor, and then they asked me, please apply to be chair. So I've been chair for 3 years now, and my time I know is going to be up. But that's been really useful in terms of, giving back.
Weren't you a part of a team that the government had set up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I skipped that.
Yeah,
so
that's important to
So
know.
one of the things, and again, it partly relates to my interest in science and STEM.
Okay.
And so one of the things we set up was they identified scientists of colour. Well, the key thing they wanted to do was there was quite clear recognition that there was enough people of colour going into science, going into STEM, and how can we in general help young people? So what we ended up doing was we ended up getting on a scheme where there were 10 people of colour. There was myself, there was the excellent Dr. Maggie Popok, who came on board, and a few others, and we would do a mixture of podcast and YouTube videos about ourselves and the interest of science, and also offer the opportunities of going into schools to talk about science, and which I still do. So I still go to primary schools, and particularly now when there's Science Week, I try and visit schools to encourage young people to consider science as a career. And so that's something that I'm passionate about, and I'm still doing.
Indeed, but the government actually, ceased that particular project.
Yeah.
And is there a reason why? I mean, it was.
So the idea is that that project was partly funded by the government and also partly funded by the Royal Society. And they are still doing different events associated with that. What they've done recently, and anyone should really visit their website, is that the 10 scientists that are involved in themselves on YouTube, they've now made learning materials from the 10 of us. So schools can actually get that as a learning material which they can use.
Right. So just to come to, we're coming almost to the end now, but just to get your take on, this year is 70 years after the Windrush arrived, and the whole thing about contribution.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard, your contribution over the years, but give us a general sort of summary of what you believe we should be doing in terms of looking back 70 years and celebrating those years, but also looking forward. What's your take?
Well, I've been reflecting on the Windrush, and in terms of the 70th year, and one of the things I think is really important, what we should acknowledge, and I know one or two people are thinking of this, is that yes, there were clearly people of colour, black people, that had been in the UK before, but 1948 represents an important milestone, because before that, the large number of people of colour wasn't there. So they were the catalyst. And I see 1948, those individuals that arrived actually be the start of what I refer to as the modern black community. And we are, in many ways, a descendant of that. Indeed. Even though there was only 500, but many people followed, like my parents,
yes.
In the late
Just
50s.
one generation, really.
Yeah. And so when we look at the progress and where we are, in 1948, just ask yourself the same one question. How many politicians of colour were there? And now we look at and we see the many. But also, 2018 also represents the 50th anniversary of the Second Race Relations Act.
Indeed.
And also represents the 70th anniversary of NHS. And so we look and we've realised that the contribution that the Windrush generation have made in this society as a whole is immense. We should be proud of the success and achievement we've made. Clearly, there are still ways to go, and I don't think no one is in argument of that. But there's no way of denying the impact that we as a community have done, you know, when you look at in the past 70 years, which should be, I think, recognised and celebrated.
And celebrated, indeed. So what sort of things do you think should be happening? I know that there are workshops, there are presentations, there's an exhibition that's going to be happening at the British Library. I mean, what sort of things would you be doing? So
one of the things that we've been doing in terms of Reach Society is that we have a network conversation every month. What we've been doing in every month of these network conversations are free, so please look on our website, www.reachsociety.com. We're highlighting the impact of what the Windrush generation have done in the last 70 years. And so, for example, we're having a discussion around individuals, around public transport and the impact. We're also hoping that in the future months we'll be meeting with some of the nurses that were involved when they first arrived, because I think part of what it is, and you're right, Arthur, it's about educating, particularly the young people.
Indeed.
I don't think the young people are aware of what the Windrush means. I think in a way, sadly, if I'm allowed, and I know we're running out of time, in that the Windrush scandal, I think the one positive, if we can say, is it's made people more aware.
Indeed.
And aware particularly of their contribution and what they've done to society. Indeed. So I think it's really important that we get the young people to be aware. And one of the other schemes that I'm trying to do personally is to get young people to interview some of the older
generation.
Yeah, because we don't do that enough.
Well, look, great talking to you. I'm sure we're going to come back again, especially about the science bit.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Donald. Great to have you. And now we would pass you back on to Lavina.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.